Thanks for tuning into this presentation. You're about to either watch a video or listen to audio recorded at the Grassroots Radio Conference in 2012 at the Independent Media Center in Urbana-Champaign. Please enjoy.
The intention today is to answer questions for all the people that have, I don't know, like questions about the engineering part, the technical part of the form for the application for LPFM. So why we didn't start with introductions, and I want to know if you guys are here because you want to apply for a station, or what is your involvement with the LPFM window process. So my name is Ana Martina. I work with Prometheus Radio Project, and I'm the technical and trainer person in the organization. So if you have questions, you can always email me or call me, and I will try to do my best.
My name is Andy Gunn. I used to work at the Prometheus Radio Project. I'm currently at the Open Technology Institute in DC, but I'm a broadcast engineer, and yeah, I'll be helping out on this session. Do we want to go around and say where we're from and if we're applying for a station? Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Al Davis. I'm an engineer, upstate New York. I've done some stuff for several community radio stations.
Cool.
I'm Tom Voorhees. I have a long engineering background in satellite uplink, microwave, fiber optics, and when I'm not out working professionally, I try to put as much time as I can into building community radio stations.
I'm Byron Hooks. I'm from Chicago, and I came to apply for a community radio station.
Great.
I'm Andy Weedman. I'm from St. Louis, Missouri, and I'm going to possibly be helping an organization called More there apply for it.
Cool.
Wayne Crosland, also from St. Louis, Missouri. I'm here representing a 501c3 that deals with immigrants and refugees, and we'll probably be applying for this.
Okay, I'm Luke Roseborough. I'm with WSLR. We already have a station, but I'm helping them. We're going to help a community in Venice start their own community radio station. I'm a programmer with WSLR. I'm host of the Dirty Ice Cream Truck, which plays trip hop and other alternative electronic music. I'm also a certified computer technician. I manage their IT for them, and I'm also self-elected president of Sarasota.
Wow.
My name is Talon Curran. I'm with the 6 Mile Regional Library District in Granite City, Illinois, which is right across the river from St. Louis. And we're hoping to get an LPFM for our library.
This project is awesome, by the way. I talked to him yesterday.
I'm Candace. I'm with Free Press, and we're helping groups apply for stations.
Sue Skirman, quote-unquote media center, formerly paid staff, now volunteer, Albuquerque, New Mexico. We're going to apply. It's actually, I found out it's from a media literacy project. We're going to be the lead on applying for an LPFM.
I'm Nick. I'm also with Free Press, providing applicant support.
I'm also Nick, and I'm from Rochester, New York, with Rochester Free Radio, and we apply for an LPFM.
Great.
I'm Francisco from Phoenix, Arizona, and we're applying for an LPFM in Phoenix.
Joe Newman from Fayetteville, Arkansas. It's our second shot getting a radio station, LPFM this time.
My name is Jeremy, and I'm from Minneapolis. My name is Juanita, and I'm from Minneapolis too, and we have a radio station there, and we're just here to learn more about how to apply, just to know how to apply, but also maybe in the future. Mi nombre es Rosa, y vengo de Dominica. I'm Rosa, and I'm from Minneapolis.
Sure.
I'm Brett. I'm from Iowa City. We're going to start a little Power FM there.
Cool.
Andy?
How's it going, Brad? Do you want to
I'm
introduce
Rich
it?
here, founder of REC Networks, and I'm going to help a lot of people this time around help them get on here.
I'm Brenda from NHMC, and I'm hoping to apply.
Great.
Okay, so just gonna show the agenda for today. So I know that probably some of you already signed up for an account on Radio Spark, but I just want to explain a little bit what is the tool and what you can do there and how you can use it and how can you find resources also if you're applying for a radio station. And then I'm gonna explain what is R-Free, the channel finder tool that Prometheus is developing, and probably do a demo if we have wireless here. And then we will talk about the information that you need for the application, the technical part, and then we will talk about engineering studies. And if you guys have questions, Andy was in the last window, so he's the person that can help, and Michi and Al and a lot of people that is in the room right now. So it's a good opportunity to ask questions. Okay, so did you guys already have an account for Radio Spark? Can you just raise your hand? Okay, and are you guys familiar in how to use the tool, or not yet, or more or less? Radio Spark?
Oh. The whole website, yeah.
Yeah, okay, so I'm gonna explain. Radio Spark is just, it's a website that we create to provide support for applicants. So the idea is basically, we're asking applicants to go there and create an account. And we're asking also people that has experience in building a station, so they're engineers, or they participate before in the process of applying for a station. And we're trying to create this website where we can share expertise and people has questions. So, because we're like 7 staff members in Prometheus, and we're answering phones all the time, but we don't really have the capacity sometimes to answer a lot of questions. So we're asking the community to be a resource also to help with applicants that want to create new stations. So Radio Spark has different places where you can go and ask questions. We have forums where we are posting all the questions about R-Free, and also if you have resources, if you have a place where somebody can place an antenna, or if you have mixers, or you have equipment for studios, you can post your resources there, and then people can go there and find you. If you were able to resolve some problem, if you find an engineer or something, that you can also post your experience there, and that would be really helpful for applicants. The thing about Radio Spark also, it's Radio Spark shares accounts with R-Free. So if you want to use R-Free, you need to create an account in Radio Spark. First, you have to register, and then you can access R-Free. So I'm just gonna pass around some of these cards that have just some information about what R-Free is. So R-Free is a software we developed to find channels in the communities. So we have different channel finders. The FCC has their own. Michi developed also RIC networks, and that's a tool that we have been using for many, many years. And Michi also has been really helpful. She was reviewing R-Free, and she submitted a report that was really detailed. She's helping us to find bugs in this software, because it's in a beta release still, so there's still a lot of problems with the software, but Michi is helping us a lot. So one of the things that you need to, do you guys already use one of these tools, RSC networks or the FCC final channel or like other tool? Can you raise your hand if you already identify an available channel in your community? So seems like almost everybody is familiar with this. Just let me know if I'm talking about something that doesn't really make sense. Or.
How many here have used REC? How many of you have used ArtFree? How many of you have used the FCC tool? Okay, there's your,
Yeah.
you go.
Okay. We have also this tool that is in our website, and this tool we use it for mostly to send comments to the FCC. Yeah.
Who has never checked to see if a channel is free? I'm the only one? Okay, we'll talk later.
No, me too.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm sure they
Let's use
know.
her, we can
My
get our
station
free up, let's
manager
use
just
her
gave me
location
a
as a test
product,
case.
so I'm
Sure.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
might, if we have time, we can go through the folks that haven't looked for
Okay,
channels
cool.
yet and put you up on the
And I'm
big
here
screen.
all day today, if you need any help.
Okay. So we use this tool also just to send comments to the FCC. But this tool, it was actually working with the. It was not going to be providing a lot of information. It was just going to say, you know, if there's no channel available, then you have to submit this form and tell the FCC that you want to open more channels. Basically, because we were advocating for a second adjacent channel. I'm going to try to don't confuse people with terms here.
We can define some things later.
Yeah. So this is REC Networks, and probably a lot of folks are familiar. It's the tool that Michi developed. So I see that mostly all of the folks here use it before. So we're going to also explain what are the information that you need here in order to find a channel. It's basically you need to have a location. So you need to have a transmitter site where you're going to be placing your transmitter and your antenna. So if you attend the session yesterday, we're explaining a little bit you can have your studio in one place and you can have your transmitter location in a different place, so it can be the same place. But the difference is the transmitter site is the place where you're going to be placing your transmitter and your antenna. And from that location is where you're going to be broadcasting, so you're going to be sending your signals from that location all around. So if you have your studio in a different place, you just want to consider that this is the place where you're going to be sending your signal. So you want to have your community around that place.
Yeah, so if you're just starting out and trying to figure out, well, where would be the place where we want to put the antenna, some good places are existing towers already. So if there's a cell tower or a broadcast tower in your town already, you might be able to talk to the folks that own that tower and see if you can strike a bargain. Maybe on the top of a hill, or if someone owns some good centrally located land where you could potentially build a tower. All these things are possibilities. So and it's important to try different sites. So if you don't find a channel on the first try, maybe try some other places around town. But we'll get more into the tool and how that helps you find the right spot. But do you have a question?
This is too detailed and it's local, sorry. But see, Albuquerque's at 5,000 feet and we're right on the edge of a 10,000-foot mountain.
Mm-hmm.
And like the radio stations tend to have their towers on top of San Diego Crest. Would
Mm-hmm.
that be good for LPFM or Oakville?
I'd say probably not. LPFMs are really, they have a radius or a broadcast range of 5 miles or so. So you really want to have them in the location that you want to cover. So for instance, there's one on the roof right here, and so it covers Champaign-Urbana really well. But if it were just outside of town, it might only get half the town really well.
The roof of one of the higher buildings in downtown.
Yep. The rooftops are very good locations also, depending on if you can strike a deal with the building owner and they're not too worried about, there's radio frequency radiation coming off the top, which is not anything you need to worry about at low power FM powers, but it's something that we can, if folks have concerns, we can answer those later.
You said it's 5-mile radius, so it'd be a 10-mile diameter.
More or less, like 5 miles on a good day. It's very dependent on terrain.
The other thing is if you apply with one transmitter site and then you want to move a block and a half, you have to get the FCC's approval.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. And you have to apply for what's called a minor change, which is just their terminology for an amendment to your application. But don't worry about that yet. You need to get it first.
Yeah.
What is a good way to find out if there is a tower in your community? Who owns the tower?
The FCC has a form on their website that's a little bit hard to use, but I can go over that stuff with folks later. I don't. Does your tool have a tower finder?
It does not have a tower finder yet,
Okay.
but.
But there are ways to look them up.
Yeah, and what you may want to do is, just very quickly, if the tower is like, if it's, sometimes what the FCC, what these tower owners do is they're legally required to put the antenna tower registration number on like a fence outside the tower.
Right.
It's usually a 7-digit number. You take down that number. There's a place on the FCC Wireless Division website where you can go and put in that antenna tower registration number, and it will return the records for that tower.
You should tell them what to do if their tower is exempt from posting a number.
Oh well, we can figure it out. But if it gets to searching for a tower later, having the GPS coordinates from your phone can really help you find, because there's a way to search for it on the website, on the FCC's website.
And there's a website that Common Frequency has in their site where you can find where the I don't know if it's here, maybe no, here. What is that?
F5.
Okay.
Oh, maybe not.
No. Okay. Well, this is a place where you can also go there and you can find where like the towers are in your community. You just enter your location, your address, and then it will research the antennas or the towers, the tower sites are around. It's a good resource. I don't think that I have internet here.
Yeah, I'm not getting anything either.
Right? Yeah. This is gonna be a shame because I was planning on doing a demo of finding if there's available channels. So we're not gonna be able to do that, but I can do that with folks after this session. If you have more questions, we can probably find a place where we can do that.
Anybody got a hotspot?
Yeah, I'll turn my tethering on.
He's got it.
Okay.
And it'll take it a minute, so hopefully we can log on to it.
Okay.
later.
I'm back in again.
It keeps turning on and off.
Yeah, but it's there.
We'll see if my
May
stuff's
also depend
faster.
on where you're at, and whether the moon is in Jupiter or Sagittarius or not. I mean,
Okay, so I'm just gonna talk a little bit about our free. So the intention of this tool was to make something that was easy for people to use and that can also provide information that is also easy to understand. So when you find a channel, an available channel, sometimes that channel is gonna be simple for you to apply. You don't need to do to present any engineering study. It's probably because it's not causing any interference. But sometimes that channel is causing some interference. The contour that is the covered of area that is probably causing some interference with other station. So that's when you're probably gonna need to ask an engineer. So this can be a simple engineering study or can be a little bit more complicated depending on the other station, the coverage of the other station, if that contour is being protected by the FCC. So that's when it started being a little bit more complicated. But we're trying to do this tool like a simple, where people can understand how to read those answers. And when you do this study, you enter a location, it's gonna show you a table that's gonna show channels in green and yellow and red. So if you have the green one, then that means that you can apply for that because it's an available channel and you're not causing any interference. But if it's a yellow one, then that means that you need to present an engineering study, a waiver, and that can be a simple one. But if it's in red, then that can be a little bit more complicated and also a little bit more expensive. So I don't know if you want to explain a little bit more.
Yeah, so we've kind of got easy, medium, and hard, right, for the options when you're searching for a channel. So if the tools come back and they say, hooray, you've got like 1035 and this other frequency available, then you can, write down those details of the location that you search by, the frequency, and all of those things, and save that for when you are doing the application. and then you've got a good chance there of getting a successful application. Of course, other folks might also be applying for that channel, but that's another thing. Like if you have competing applications later, then that's for another time. The maybe cases, the harder cases, are if there's a lot of other stations in the area, and it might be crowded, especially in I'm going to use Chicago for example. Chicago is a very crowded radio market. The FCC has a lot of rules that protect the incumbent or the existing radio stations that are already there. And they have a lot of rules that I think are a little over the top in how much they protect existing stations. They have a lot of protections, and the broadcast lobby groups have fought very hard to put up these basically guards around their radio stations, so that folks that want to come in and put new ones in have to go through a lot of hoops in order to be able to apply for new stations. But there's ways that we can sort of bend the rules a little bit by doing some extra work. And so if you don't have an easy case, the green light, yes, here's a frequency, then you're going to have to do a few things and contact a broadcast engineer to help you with the application. And so you can take the data that you've already discovered, like your location and where you want to broadcast to, and some good places in town that you think would be good for antenna sites, and you can contact Ana Martina or someone, and they'll put you in contact with a broadcast engineer that has special software that can then do a search, like a much more detailed search than the simple online tools can do, and they can sort of try and play with the FCC rules a little bit and see if they can sneak a station in. But of course that takes longer. It's not free anymore because the engineer will have to charge for their time. And costs vary. Doing a search might only cost $100 or $200 just for them to figure out if it's feasible. But the actual application might be $500, $1,000, $1,500 as it gets more complicated and it takes more of their time. And there's also no guarantee that even with an engineering study that it will be successful, because we still don't have the FCC's final rules on what low power FM stations are going to be allowed to do in the application process. They're still fighting back and forth on different possibilities for the actual set of rules that we're going to be allowed to use. So we don't know how easy it'll be to get to bend the rules around the existing protections around stations. So we have our fingers crossed, and we're working to make sure that the rules are very flexible to allow the best possibility for getting low power FM stations, especially in big cities where it's going to be really the hardest to get them in. And if all goes well, then it might be a fairly easy process to apply for these waivers to get them in there. So those cases we'll have to take one at a time and just see what happens. But we're hoping that the FCC will make the process easy to use. Although it's the FCC, so who knows?
Another part that I was going to mention, so the part of contacting an engineer, it can be sometimes the part was really hard, and we are trying to think in how we can make that process a little bit easier, and that's what we are thinking. Radio Spark can be the place where we can ask also engineers to go there and sign up and create an account, and offer their services, and that way we can also have that information there online, public for the people, because what happened in the past, I think the Prometheus has a list of engineers there, but then we cannot really be promoting services of people that we don't really know if they are reliable or no. It's pretty unfortunately, but there's a lot of engineers out there that are also charging a lot of money, because this is also a money-making opportunity. Because you can charge a lot of money, but that doesn't really guarantee that you're gonna have a license, that you're gonna get the license. So You just have to be careful with that when you're contacting engineers. And we're trying to work with engineers that submit applications in the past. But again, you know, like I don't know how many applications we're going to have this time for the window. So we are trying to think in ways where we can have engineers for people, but then also we can, one thing that we were doing with this part is like you can go there, and if you're an engineer, you can post your services there, and then somebody else can go there and can vote for your services. So if somebody has experience, you know, like, oh, I work with this engineer and it was a good experience, then you can vote and say like, oh, that was good, you know. So that's a way, you know, like.
For radio.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so we're just trying to make it, you know, like public and put it out there, and not being us the ones that are responsible for these services, because it's just like a public tool that everybody can go there and create an account. But we want to also to ask the community, you know, to help us to know, is this a good engineer? Is this somewhere that somebody can contact, you know? So that's another way that we're trying to use Radio Spark. And another thing that I was going to say also, our free, Al Davis also wrote the code, and he having also Maggie and Pablito. It's a tool that is there, the Prometheus is putting together, but I just want to mention the people that also participate in the creation of this tool. And it's great. The idea of this software is an open, free software, and it's really great. It has the collaboration of different people that has experience in the application for LPFMs. So,
Can I ask that?
yeah.
So to clarify, just to make sure what you said, so I've used the tool and I get a green on 1 or 2 stations.
Mhm.
So I do not need an engineer?
No.
I will not need an engineer in that situation.
You can fill out the technical portion of the low power FM application yourself. There's a few questions in there that might be a little tricky, but we're going to go through a little bit of that now. And there's folks you can talk to down the road to do that. It doesn't hurt to get an engineer to look that over or to help you with it, but then it's not free anymore. So it's up to you to determine if that's something that you want to spend money on to get double checked.
And another thing that's a little pre-planning thing then, so let's say there is one free green station frequency, and you're in an MX, and then you want to refile with a yellow or whatever, so should you have had an engineer examine that before all this happens? How much time will you have to get an engineer to hopefully try to refile with a second Jason waiver or something?
Let me explain some of the terminology there. So if you apply for a station and 3 or 4 or however many other groups apply for that same frequency, the FCC will take all those applications, see that they are competing with each other, and put them into what's called a mutually exclusive group, or an MX. That's their terminology for just competing applications. And when you're in that situation, there's a few questions on the FCC application that they use to determine sort of a ranking for those applicants. And we, if we want to talk about that, we can, you can chat with me about that after the session, but they can first go through these and sort of assign points to the different applications, and your application might get dismissed if it doesn't have as many points as another application. Now, once that happens, you can either combine applications with other groups to share the station with them. So say there's another group in town that you didn't know about that actually does really cool work and you want to work with them. You could decide to team up with them, and your application then becomes stronger because you've combined the two. You can also modify your application to another channel, like the yellow situation or the harder one, in which case you would then probably need to get some help from an engineer, and then you wouldn't be in conflict with that group anymore, and you would, if it goes through and they approve it, you could then both groups could get a station.
That would have to be an empty channel, not a channel that someone else is.
It would also have to be an empty channel. If there's already groups that had applied for that, you can't then apply because there's already applications pending. So the FCC won't allow that. Should you have applied for the yellow channel in the first place? That's rolling the dice. I can't say it's better or worse to do that. I mean, you might be more likely to have less folks competing for that yellow channel because it was more complicated. So maybe. It's very hard to say. You know, it's a little bit like gambling. Especially in a much more populated area, like you might have more folks applying for stations, but you don't know until they're all in. Yeah, and then we had another question.
Oh, comment. Find as many of your friends as possible to also apply. Power in numbers.
That is also a tactic, which we can talk about in a minute.
And a variation of that is that if you can chop your group into little pieces, and each piece can apply, also power in numbers.
Maybe. Maybe we can talk about that. There's different strategies for if you want to try and game the system a little bit, to put in multiple applications, then later dismiss some of them or combine them and do these sorts of things. That's up to your own particular set of ethics if you want to go that route, and if you want to because it is actually what a lot of applicants end up doing, and some of the national groups that will be applying for hundreds of stations across the country, they do those sorts of games. And that is often how we've seen stations lose out, is these games get played. And the FCC doesn't do their due diligence. It's up to the applicants actually to check that stuff out. And so you can end up competing with these groups that are playing dirty pool, and you can end up losing. And so do you want to also play dirty pool? I don't know. I leave that up to you all, and it really depends. It can work, but I've never dealt with that type of situation. So, but there was a question and then another comment, and so yeah, go ahead.
Two quick things. So just to be clear, after the window, there is a period where when they announce like the MX groups, you have the opportunity to refile.
Yeah.
Amend your application.
You can amend or you can combine. They'll have a process that they'll go through that's not especially well documented, but they give you the chance to sort of figure out what to do next.
And do you have a sense of how long that window, that reapplication window, or
I'm trying to remember. I can't remember how long it is.
Last one was open 5 days.
It was open 5 days, but they give a significant advance notice of the window.
Okay.
What does significant mean, like 2 months?
30 to 60 days,
60
typically.
days, yeah. I would
To combine, if you were in an MX group.
I have a quick follow-up question.
Yeah.
The second, when we're talking about waivers and second adjacent, maybe this is not the right time to talk about this, but does that open you up to more encroachment risk than?
Encroachment is another thing that you should probably worry about more once you have the station. But essentially, what encroachment means is when you have a LPFM, you're not what's called a primary service. In other words, there's all these other full power stations that essentially have more rights on the dial than you do, unfortunately. And if they want to move their station over top of you, it can cause interference to your station or potentially knock you off the air in the worst case. That has happened. It doesn't happen that often, although interference does happen quite frequently.
And that can happen to any channel, regardless of what color it is on it.
Yeah, and so don't worry about that during the application process. That's something you'll have to just deal with as time goes on.
Yeah, I was just going to mention also, our RIC network has also a report that is every 2 weeks or something.
About every week or so.
Every week.
Generated.
It provides also information if any station is under encroachment, and we send information to those stations. As Prometheus, we have an intern, Nate, that's not here, but he's doing encroachment, so he goes over to that report, and then if there's any encroachment with LPFMs, we send information to that station to take action and like contact an engineer and deal with that. But that's after. So yeah.
So there was 2 comments, and then we had some questions. Or,
Yeah,
you know.
I was just gonna say, if it appears you're gonna have multiple applicants for the same channel that's available, if you wanna be really successful, you should think about hiring an engineer, because they have a lot of tricks that you're not gonna know.
Mhm. It is usually worth the money.
Yeah.
It can definitely help. So did you have?
So if a single organization does try to break up into multiple applications and stuff, if you bring that to the attention of the FCC, will that delegitimize their application?
Potentially.
Potentially?
Very much.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. And just one other thing, I went to the FCC's
Mhm.
search and just very briefly looked at it yesterday, and the coordinates I typed in failed.
Okay.
But it seemed to have what looked like recommendations for moving my coordinates. Is that what that is? They
Yeah.
offer recommendations for.
I think both our free and your tool does that.
My tool has a wide area
Yeah.
search on it where
Okay.
when you pull it up, if you pull it up in REC, on the left-hand side, you'll see like a little square grid that has like a little red and yellow and green squares there.
Okay.
And you can do is if you see a green square, you can click on that square, on that number that's on that square, and it will redo the search for you at that location,
Awesome.
and it will show you on the map where that
Yeah.
location is once you do it. It's kind of crude, but it works.
Cool. So we had some questions over here, and then we'll get to you.
I'm
Yeah.
not sure if this is the right workshop to ask this, but why LPFM instead of full power? Is it because you have lower startup costs and we're nonprofits, it'll just be more affordable?
There's a bit of a lower barrier to entry. Yeah, it's a little bit cheaper. It's free to apply. The application process for full power stations is more complicated, and you're dealing generally. You can go up to a full 50,000 or 100,000 watts, which is the route that some applicants in that window decided to go, and you're up against basically bigger competitors at that point. Those are, the non-commercial band is also smaller. It's only, 88.1 to 91.9. There's a few exceptions in there, but that's the only portion of the band that is available for full power non-commercial stations, whereas LPFM, you can apply for any frequency that's on the FM dial. So you have more spectrum available, or more clicks on the dial available to apply for, although there will still be thousands of applications this next window, so there's going to be a lot of competition. And so it's just, with more channels comes more competition. So, but you can fit them in some places that you may not be able to fit in full power stations, and vice versa. So the last full power window was in 2007. We don't know when the next one will be, if there's ever one again. I thought I saw another hand over here. I'm sorry. But is that?
I just real quickly.
Oh, I think you were next though, but then we'll get to you. So.
The quick and dirty answer is 100 watts can do a lot less problems. Number one, and number two, it's less interference.
Yeah.
And those are two of the main reasons, plus what you said. Let's say that I find another legitimate group, and I encourage them to apply for a license. They list the same site for an antenna as my site.
Sure.
Is that going to set off things with the FCC, even if we both get
No.
awarded and then choose to?
Actually, that's encouraged.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because then you can later combine applications with them, and you could share the station with them, which has the benefit of also, then you can share the costs with them down the road for the antenna site, the building a studio, things like that. You won't get 100% of the time anymore because you'll have to share it with them. But in some cases, that's actually great, because 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, that's a lot of time to have to then fill, with programming and volunteers and all that stuff.
In this case, it's compatible enough that it would work.
Yeah, and if there's ally groups that you know in town, you can. I don't recommend teaming up with them in advance on one application. I definitely think having you and your allies put in multiple applications, even if it's for the exact same site, that will work, because then that's a little bit of a different angle of having your one organization split into multiple groups. This is, having more people at the gaming table playing the game, and then exactly, you have a better chance of winning because the odds are a little better. And then all of the other groups that also apply, you can team up against them.
Another strategy you can do is actually have the different groups file at different locations in case one of those locations is not MX. Your other groups can then reach a universal settlement. Everybody can move to the one location on a timeshare, and on the one location that's not MX to anybody, and there you go.
Yeah.
I think you might have a chance there.
Yeah, which is the same is true for if there's multiple frequencies available in an area. If there's two frequencies available, you and another allied group could each apply for one, or multiple groups you could apply for both those frequencies. So if one is less contentious, you can all move over to the one that's less has less groups competing for it, and have a better chance. So I think you had a question.
My
Then
question was about encroachment again. Were there any changes in the law based on the Community Radio Act, the 2010 Act, that are going to protect LPFMs any more than in the past?
I don't think so.
No.
No change.
Not really. There was this, and then we'll go through these questions, and then I think we had a little more to go over.
Yeah,
on here.
yeah.
So you were next, and then Norm.
Yeah, I just had a question. So the methods that we were just talking about, strategy, those are legitimate forms of ensuring that you can, or working to ensure that you can get a license, as opposed, you can't get your application thrown out because you're doing that. But
No.
if you were to split up unofficially your organization and apply for a bunch of different things, that would get you all removed probably, right?
Maybe.
Maybe.
Gotta be careful. Make sure you don't have any overlapping board members. Make sure make sure there's no real commonalities between the applications, because there's people out there like me that look for that kind of stuff.
Right.
And
But the methods we were just discussing, there wouldn't be any problem. But with this
Multiple
one, there
totally
might be.
disconnected groups, we encourage that.
Yeah. Okay.
And that's I was going to ask about the status of the group, how long you've been in existence. The issue, of course, of overlapping board members is obviously one, but what are some of the factors in terms of what groups you ought to look at to do these applications? Who do you want to ally with?
Yeah, getting back to the points that you get while you're applying, you want a group that's been in existence for 2 years or more. You want a group that has, its headquarters within a close distance to the place you plan on putting the station, place you plan on putting that application. And
the majority of board members live within the...
Exactly, within the radius of the station, essentially, or nearby.
That's a harder thing to do. It's better just to have it within 10 miles of your headquarters.
Yeah, it's within 10 miles. But, nearby is what I like to say. Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's a requirement, but the main thing is the people you can actually work with. When you're running a station with them, you should be able to sit down at a table and have a good conversation and get things done. Because then you're not going to be able to run a functional meeting. The group that you actually have real goodwill between.
And I think that we have a lot of applicants that are asking us similar questions, what is the best strategy, to make sure that you're gonna get to that. And we have webinars also every month. There are sessions on the internet, there are workshops on the internet. They have conference call number. And I was thinking that might be a good idea to put a session in the future where we are discussing this, strategy if you want to get a channel, but then if you have multiple available channels, there are green ones, and you have multiples that are yellow, what is the strategy and how you can combine, with other groups. I think that might be probably good, and probably will invite some of the people that are here. I think that will be a good place to discuss more, because that's something that Prometheus, we still don't know, when somebody's calling us and is asking that question, what is the best channel, should I choose the green one, because a lot of people's going to be applying for that one, or should I choose just the yellow one since there's not going to be, that many people applying. So that's something that I think talking with engineers, they can brainstorm more ideas than, because they already deal with that situation, and we probably should do that in the future. So I would just want to show really fast. I don't know, I cannot get internet. Maybe if we can get it, but this is the screen that you will get once when you enter your location. So that's what I was just trying to explain. The green one, the yellow one, and the red one. So with our free, when you enter your location, if you have a green channel, then it's gonna say there green, and then you will go and click in those channels, and then will show, like the other. If you're causing any interference, it will show the spacing that you have between your counter and then the other counter. And this it's a little bit not that clear there. But this is the availability map, and with our free you can see there's different areas. It's probably not as clear in the big screen. It's a little bit better, I don't know, but this is shiny. It's not really good. But our free will show you also if you're causing any interference. It has these contours that are showing, like the other station. And it will show, if it's a yellow one, then it will show in yellow, this big circle, and then will show your station that is here, that you can really see there. But your station is in blue. The circle of your coverage is in blue, and then the other one it will show in yellow. If it's a contour that's protected by the FCC, will show it in red. So that it's something that it will show, like an image where you're interfering, and then you will be able to drag this little guy, the tag, and you can move it around the map. So if you need to move your location, that's like a good tool to be like changing. Okay, so I think that we should talk a little bit about what is the information that you need for that technical application.
Okay.
I don't know if folks are familiar with the information that you need. Okay. Well, a lot of you already went and tried to find an available channel. So one of the things that you need is, of course, is the location first. And the location, when you're going to be filling in the application, you need to have that in NAT 27. Yes?
Right. So really quick, like this is an image of some of the questions that appear on the FCC's application. First and foremost, it's an online application that is built in this really old web form and is kind of a pain in the butt to navigate sometimes, so just be prepared for kind of a frustrating experience with the FCC's website. But that's nothing new, that we've been dealing with that for decades. So you'll have these series of questions, and the tools that you used before should have returned the coordinates, like the latitude and longitude of the station to you, and they have to be in a specific format, which is called NAD 27. And the GPS on your phone, the GPS on, say, Google Earth or something like that, that gives you the coordinates in another system called NAD 83, I think. And there's online tools to convert those numbers from one to the other. And it's just important that you're sure you have those coordinates in the right number system. Otherwise, there's a little bit of error with where it is on the map. And it might cause problems.
And their format is called?
NAD 27 is what the FCC wants.
So you can go to Google Map, you can enter there your location, your address, and then you have to go to one of these converters that you can find online. I didn't really put the link, but that's another resource that I can send. If people ask me, I can send resources also where you can find all this information. So when you're using RIC network and you're using R3, and I don't know about the FCC final tender tool, you can just enter your address or your zip code, and that will, give you a result. But once when you're filling the application, you need to fill that with NAT 27. Otherwise, your application is going to be dismissed. So that's something that's important.
Or your antenna will be in the wrong place.
Yeah.
Which might cause problems.
So,
some other things on the form. There's if you're using an existing tower that has a registration number, you'll want to put that number in there. So say you went and searched and you found like a tower in your town that actually will work really well for a station. It'll have what's called an ASR, an antenna registration number. Or yeah, something like that. Antenna structure registration number, that's what the S is. Just put that number in and the FCC wants to know that just for whatever reason. And then you'll have to put in some numbers about the height of the antenna above the ground, the height above sea level. I think the tools give that information.
Yeah, R3, it has a section, well, it will give you the head. So what Andy is talking, well, that's the coordinates. That's the FCC channel finder tool. This, the FCC has, in their site, has this tool where you can find the height above average terrain. If you can explain that better.
Yeah, but the FCC loves to have all these numbers, which actually computers are really good at calculating, that they want you to put in for whatever reason. Their computers can't just do it automatically. So height above average terrain is exactly what it sounds like. The location of your antenna site, like its relative height to the general terrain in the area. So here, things are pretty flat. So the height above average terrain is pretty much the average terrain, like 0. You know, there's not, you're not higher necessarily than the terrain around you. But in some very hilly areas, your site might be higher or lower relative to the average terrain. And so that's a number that you will have to put into the application that you can find with this tool. It's a very crude number. So if it comes back with something crazy sounding, it's probably crazy sounding, and that's just the number that you'll have to live with. Or you can contact an engineer and try and recalculate that height above average terrain number. The idea is that a low power FM station is 100 watts at 100 feet above the average terrain. So that's what gives it like the broadcast area that it has. So if your antenna site is very far above that, well, they actually do it in meters. So anyway, if your antenna site is much higher than the average terrain, then you're going to have to turn the power down on your transmitter so your station doesn't basically overshoot the amount of broadcast area the FCC wants to give you. If your antenna site is much lower than the average terrain, one, your broadcast area is not going to be very good, and you'll still only be limited to 100 watts. So you really want to try and find that sweet spot where your antenna is about 100 feet above the average terrain. And so that's a trick that an engineer can help you with, or you'll have to just play with and maybe draw some diagrams on the map or something like that to figure out, like, okay, ground level's at this height, my tower is 200 feet tall, where does that, and I put the antenna at the top, where does that work in the average terrain? And you'll do some arithmetic and you'll come up with these numbers. But it's very important to try and get as close to that sweet spot as possible for the FCC application, because once you get that like height, say it's like 1,000 feet above average terrain, your antenna is only going to be able to put out a watt or something extremely low. And so you might seem great, you're really high up in the air, which is why the mountaintop might not work in the best case, because your signal is going to be very weak on the ground in the town where you're trying to get to. So if you can put the antenna in the middle of town on a 100-foot tower, that's the golden spot right there. So.
And again, like for this, there's tools, because it sounds really complicated, but there's tools out there where you can enter information and then we'll give you a result. And if you have to modify that, then you can contact an engineer.
Just a feature on the REC site is if you can enter in, if you enter in on there, your, when you do the initial search, if you enter in the tower height in meters, it will actually go out, it will figure out your elevation, it'll figure out your height above average terrain,
Oh, great.
and if you're in a location where you're above 30, it will actually tell you how many watts of power to expect to be able to operate.
Cool.
Which site was this again?
That was the REC site.
REC.
Yeah, lpfm.ws.
Yeah. And a meter is 3.3 feet. So you can do a
Remember,
little
the
math.
FCC talks in metric.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For whatever, in kilometers and meters and all these things. So I like to keep a little converter thing open on my phone or on my computer or whatever and just convert as I go along. Make sure you're putting the right numbers in. Make sure it's meters and not feet, because if you put in like 100 feet into the meters field, that'll be 100 meters, and that's very different. That's 3 times more. So that'll skew things on your application. So just make sure you're keeping your.
We're all going to switch to measure.
Right. Yeah.
It will be better. So what other things that you need to know?
Let's see what else is on here.
You need to mention also the class. That's like, LPFM R100. We still don't know. Like, it was like a debate where if we were going to have a different options of 10, 25, 50, 20 to 50. But we don't really know if that's going to happen. So, and again, this is a form for the last window. So we're using this as a model, but we don't really know how the new form is going to be. But we're assuming there's going to be some information. I mean, there's information that you're going to need to have your location, and then the hat is something that you're going to need to have.
Probably will be mostly the same, but we don't know.
You're going to need to, when you find your channel, the FCC assigns numbers per channel. So if you have 94.5, you're not going to enter 94.5 here. You're going to enter the number that the FCC is assigning to that channel. So that's the number that you're going to put here.
It's a number between 200 and 300, which is just how they assign the channel numbers. Like, I think 88.1 is channel 201, and it goes up from there, something like that. So there's a tool on the FCC's website to convert the frequency to the number. Just use that.
REC's site also displays both the number and the
I think R3.
Yeah, R3 does that too.
All the tools should give you those numbers.
Yeah, these tools like share a lot of features. So, but again, it's just important to remember that the information that you're entering in the form is the correct. That's the only thing that you need to remember there.
Can I ask a question about that? So, in your example, 94.5 is a frequency, and they would want a number that they assign, and what do they call that number?
Just channel number.
Channel number?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's the FCC. It's got to be more complicated than it needs to be.
Very brief history. Back in the 1930s, 1940s, when they were coming out with FM radio, what they wanted to do was they wanted to be like TV. TV had channels 2 through 83. Well, what they wanted to do is they wanted to have FM stations use the channel numbers and not the dial positions, not the frequencies that we use today. Of course, that never panned out, but they figured, okay, 201 through 300, that'll never conflict with TV. So that's basically the somewhat true story about the why we use these silly channel numbers.
Okay.
Well, if I had my way, we'd be using wavelengths on AM instead of kilohertz.
So let's see.
This is just about interference.
Yeah, and basically there's a few things you check here to say, no, I'm not interfering with any other stations. No, I didn't put an antenna site in the middle of the wetlands. Things like that. There's environmental stuff that they want you to certify, and that you didn't, you're not going to put like an antenna in the middle of a hospital, like you won't have RF radiation in the middle of babies, something like that.
So if you have turned back a green channel frequency, you would just check no, like I'm not interfering to all these. That's the assumption anyway.
And in the case that it is, that's when you attach the waiver.
Right. And if you do have a more complicated situation where where you're a little close to a station, what's called short spaced, essentially like you have this interference situation that the FCC is trying to disallow, you can attach some extra information from your engineer that they'll prepare some forms for you and some maps and studies that show that actually no, there's no interference, or interference is very, very minimal and this station should be allowed anyway. So you'd say, actually, yes, we have some interference, but here's some data that shows it's okay. And so that's where you check that box and attach some extra forms, things like that.
So one of the things of R3 is we're trying to create a tool that can help applicants to understand in a simple way if you have an available channel and how complicated if you need to have to present a waiver. But then also, Pablito and I are working and developing features that are going to be also for engineers. So the goal is to the tool to provide the information that an engineer can use to submit the waiver also. Because the programs, the softwares that are out there are really expensive, and you're not allowed to share if you have a license, and you cannot use the same software, like two people cannot be using the same software. So the software is really, really expensive. Command and Pro is the other one?
Yeah, there's vSoft makes a set of the software packages, and RF Software makes a set of packages that are like $5,000, $10,000, $15,000 just to buy the software, and there's others as well.
The chunk of code that I write that they're using in R3 does that analysis. And it's free.
Yeah. So these tools that we have, they're not any worse. It just, the fancy tools output extra data and can create maps and things like that then you can attach onto the FCC forms in a fancy way that look nice for the FCC to review. So.
Yeah, so that's one of the other pieces of R3. There's going to have these other features that are going to be for engineers to be able to attach that in a waiver. So it's that, yeah, like for users and for engineers. What other things we have up there? Okay, we went to
solar-powered LPFMs?
No.
Yes, there are. There's also hydro-powered ones.
Yeah, and there's some full power solar stations also. Helps to be in the southwest or in the southern part of the states to have enough sun. But yeah, it's doable. It's definitely doable.
Is there like a resource we can contact for that?
Phoenix
For you mean for solar?
Yeah.
Contact your local like solar companies, and you give them the power requirements that you have and work it out with them for cost versus that sort of thing. You might still need like a backup generator or something there in case whatever happens.
Sun goes out. Do you know of a station that's already doing solar?
K-Tao and Taos.
Oh.
Yeah. Where is that?
K-T-A-O.
Yeah.
K-Taos.
K-Tao.
Taos, New Mexico.
Oh, New Mexico.
They're one of the, I think, bigger stations that does that.
Huh.
And there's probably a few LPFMs. I'm not familiar with them.
A hydro?
KRU. Yeah, that's very cool.
The only hydro that I visited was in Costa Rica.
Oh, there's one in Costa Rica too?
Yeah, but it was an AM. It was an FM. That's a different.
Google micro hydro.
There's a hydro in upstate New York.
Oh, there is.
Oh,
That's
really?
good. It's great for remote sites where there might not be power lines going to your hilltop, because it might cost $10,000 to run power lines up to the side of this hill. With the power company doesn't have to, they don't want to, and they'll charge you an arm and a leg. So if you're going to be spending $10,000, might as well make solar.
There's
For
a wind
half.
power site too, somewhere in the southwest that does in this code. Wind turbines.
Oh, cool.
Nothing transmission. That's very cool.
Yeah.
It's very cool.
If you have enough batteries, like you can make it work.
Hook them up to the Jewish Community Center with their
Treadmills?
The treadmills and stuff like that. Boy, those people just.
Yeah, if there's a gym in town, you can put little motors on the
Think about how much power LA Fitness
Exactly.
potentially generate and put back into the grid.
I think it's a scandal they don't do that.
That's a renewable energy source right there.
These concrete panels that these high school kids developed, stuff, and it actually,
It's on the
when
ground?
you step on them,
Oh,
it
neat.
actually pushes the,
Some sort of
through the coil.
circuit,
And-
yeah.
Yeah, and
That's great.
so these high school kids came up with this.
That's a great idea.
Wow. They want to put them in high traffic areas.
For LPFM, you'll end with hamsters in a cage.
Yeah. It's basically light bulbs, so. What else do we have?
I think that was like, I was just trying to show the form and the information that you need, and I guess also we're like thinking in this session as a Q&A session, so.
Yeah, we sort of covered some of these things already, but did folks have more questions? They have.
Also, if people want to go through the demo of our free, after this session we can go downstairs and find a place, and then we can play a little bit with the tool. And I will show you how to create an account. If you have an account with the Radio Spark, I will show you how to access our free and how to save your study. That's the other thing also that you can do with our free. You can save your study, you can go back, review the study, create a new study. You can have multiple studies there, and it will be saved there. In your account, so anybody can access that. I guess if you share that link and they have accounts there, that's the idea. The engineers can have access to that too. Yeah.
Sorry. So I noticed there's a tower on the roof.
Mhm.
So
Here?
is there an LPFM in this building?
Yep,
Mhm.
WRFU.
WRFU is low power, okay.
Mhm.
104.5?
I think so, yeah.
104.5?
Yeah, I was listening to it when driving home last
I
night.
was interviewed on it yesterday.
Oh.
Didn't know the name of it.
I helped build the station.
So I was, yeah, that's what my question is, like, so how long has it been going? Like,
I think we built it in 2005. We put the tower on the roof. We built the studio.
What did you tell the thing about the antenna, that the historic district limited your height and you're gonna try to build it?
Yeah, there was, because this is a historic building, there was a bunch of limitations on what could actually be attached to the structure. And so, I don't know the story now, I'm out of touch with the folks, but there's a new.
What I was told yesterday is the historic, they limited the height.
Yeah.
That within 6 months or so, they're gonna build a freestanding 100-foot tower.
Mhm.
They finally got an approval from the city
Mhm.
so that it doesn't interfere with the historic thing. Because from what I understand, what they told me yesterday, is 67, 70?
Yeah, it's a little under height.
It doesn't reach as far as you want it to reach.
Because I think it comes out to about 65 feet or something like that the antenna is at right now. And since the terrain here is so flat, if you could get an extra 35 feet or a little more, your broadcast radius would be increased.
How much is it now, you think, your radius?
I don't remember.
Like 3
We
miles
worked
or
it out once. 3 to 4 miles for a really good solid signal. You can potentially get it further than that if you have a good radio, if you have a big antenna on your roof at your house, or your car radio is really good, something like that. And there's no competing stations. If there's no interfering stations, it'll go further. I can't remember if they're hemmed in with other stations here, but.
Did you have to hire someone to put the tower up, or did you do it yourself?
We did it ourselves. It was part of a barn raising that Prometheus Radio Project had, and we had a number of folks here in town that were helping with that, who were pretty savvy. So.
Do you need a crane, or do you?
For this, no. Since it's only about 25 feet
before
of tower on the roof, so we were actually able to put that up and put guy wires out from the tower to support it. So it's anchored to the roof with the guy wires, and we were able to just raise it basically with ropes. But the larger towers, the 100-footers, those are harder to build. There's different techniques to put those up. I usually say hire a crew to do that, just for safety's sake. It is possible to build them yourselves for certain kinds of towers. It depends on how good your insurance is.
Is there an app for locating low-power FM stations? There's like a wonderful app for public radio stations.
It's a good question.
Bam, go anywhere and it'll tell you exactly where you are and where you need to be. Is there an app for low-power FM?
Not that I know of.
SoundTap. It actually has like
Oh, do
college radio stations.
College stations.
That's not it's also not an app yet.
Not an app, yes, or
Just a website.
That would be a great idea for Prometheus.
But yeah, I'm just thinking that would be.
Get on that.
You don't have to Unfortunately, I have absolutely I have no job experience or any experience writing apps, but, you know,
They should find.
It's doable. Sure is doable.
Okay,
the main REC, the main REC tools, the LPFM search as well as the broadcast query tools are both, there are versions of those that work with mobile browsers that are specially designed to work with the mobile browser. You know, I can bring it up on my smartphone.
How about
here.
an FCC site? Is there an FCC site that would use that?
They have a search form also, but it's super complicated. I wouldn't use it on my cell phone. What's that?
Radiolocator.com.
I mean,
That returns all stations, doesn't it? Yeah, so you can do that. Yeah. But unfortunately, no, there's no app. Someone should get on that.
Listen, I'll tell you what, I will check that out.
Yeah.
I will check, there's a couple of companies that say, you've got an idea, you know, you get a percentage of whatever comes back out of it. I'll
Cool.
check it, I'll seriously, I'll check it.
I think people would buy it for
The race
50
is
cents
on.
or $1.
When you, when the tower gets built, because the height is changing, where the antenna is, do you have to file with the FCC?
Yes.
That you're making that change?
Is that the minor?
It's it's called a minor change.
Oh, it's the same thing, okay.
There's two types of application changes that you can make with the FCC. One is a minor one and one is a major. Major is if you're moving the station really far, if you're changing things really, really radically. If it's something small, like we're moving it over half a mile, we're increasing the height a certain amount, you have to make sure that you're not going to interfere with any stations making that change. So say you're right on the edge of another station now. If you want to move your station east and it gets into their broadcast area, that would be disallowed, and so you'd need to check that before you make that change. But in order to increase it 35 feet, they basically just resubmit the technical portion of the application with the new data, like the new height, all the new calculations of what they're doing, and hit go. And 30 to 60 days later, if the FCC does their job, they'll return it, and it should be approved without too much trouble. So, but yeah, you'll need to think ahead about that stuff.
and so the FCC, is that what they refer to when they say minor mod and major mod?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Minor change.
And
Yeah, they use
how-
different terms for
How
it.
soon after you, because it's so challenging, and you have to get all the details perfect to get your license or your construction permit. So like, once you've done that, how soon after can you make those changes? Does it matter?
You mean after you've
Yeah.
applied?
Yeah.
Well, once you've submitted your application in the application window, they'll close the window, and then for an unknown length of time, they'll evaluate those applications, and it could be a week, it could be 6 months, it could be however long it takes before they put out the MX list and the list of all the applications that they have. And then there's, evaluation periods that you can use to change your data, to do stuff like that. You'll either find right away if you're granted, dismissed, or pending, all these different things, or if you're in competition with other stations. Those lengths of time are really dependent on how quickly the FCC busts its butt to get stuff ready. So I can't say.
And also too, certain minor modifications could most likely be filed at any time afterwards. You can move your station up about 3 miles, or maybe specify a channel that is either your first adjacent one, so like instead of 94.5, let's say 94.3 or 94.7. And there's another rule for a couple other channels that are way off in the distance I'm not going to get into.
But there's no time limit in terms of how, because I heard something yesterday where if you want to make a change, you have to wait 2 years after you build or something like that.
No.
That's for a license transfer.
Oh, that's for a transfer.
Yeah.
Got it.
If you want to give it to another group.
Right.
But no, if you you can make minor changes at any time. Yeah.
How long is the application? I mean, like, how many pages is it?
That's like 10 or
It's
15.
blowing my mind to like 150.
No. Most of it is a bunch of declarations by the FCC of what different things mean.
It's an online thing?
It's online. It's maybe 6 or 7 sections. It's been a while since I've done
I
it.
have it here. We can look at it.
Fill it out little by little and save it.
Yeah.
You're thinking full power power, the low power one is smaller.
It's
Yeah.
much smaller. When the
Yeah.
FCC did low power FM in 2000, 1999, whatever, they used the KISS theory, keep it simple, stupid.
Yeah.
It really is, compared to a full power on a lot of things, it is much simpler.
Oh, yeah.
And on a lot of things, and especially, and even the application, the initial application is, for your original construction permit is very easy. There's, your license to cover application that you'll file after
This
you
is for
build
construction, right?
is
Yeah, this
gonna
is
be just
the-
a little more
Is
challenging.
this 318?
Yeah, this
gonna
is
ask you a few
318.
extra questions and things like that, but, overall, compared to the full broadcast applications, it's actually
20,
a very easy
21.
application.
Yeah, so about 20 pages, half of which is a bunch of text telling you what is on
Yeah.
the following pages.
Yeah, like the 10 first pages is just instructions saying how to fill the application, but it's like about 10 maybe.
Then I think there's some guides out there on how to fill
Yeah.
out a lot of this
This-
stuff.
It's kind of like the tax forms. When you get the tax forms, the paper tax forms, how they have like the instruction book and they have the little worksheets in there. Then maybe there's only like 2 or 3 pages of actual tax form. That's basically what this is like.
That's all the like government forms are kind of like that. Immigration forms are the same. It's like I'm so
Yeah.
familiar
Well, they
with
have
this.
to account for that 5 hours or however many hours the Paperwork Reduction Act, thing.
Right.
Yeah.
They have to account for that.
Yeah.
So they put in all these lengthy instructions and stuff.
There is guides also out there. The NAN and Kai, the board of the Prometheus, they put together guides for these forums, and I think Vanessa and Kai, they're working together to update all these guides.
Great.
So we hope that we're gonna have that information soon also.
What are the most important things applicants can do now before the new form is out for the technical piece? What can applicants start doing today before the new form?
I would say like one of the things to find a tower site where you're going to be placing your transmitter and make sure that you are going to be able to build it there. Find an available like physical site.
And I'd actually say the most important stuff is not technical at all. It's actually organizational. It's like starting to think about how you'd actually run a station. While you might have a couple of years before you'll actually get the info back from the FCC saying approved or denied, like you can start doing an online streaming station. You can start figuring out who the different community organizations in your neighborhood are or in your city that you want to start working with, and finding just a lot of logistics, figuring out fundraising, figuring out organizational structure, stuff like that. That takes a lot of legwork, and it's a lot of work to get that stuff done. And so actually the people part, I think, is harder than the tech part. But.
On the technical side, I would say secure your site. Make sure you've got your site. Make sure you've got your zoning in order if there's going to be tower construction there.
Mm-hmm.
Get your coordinates correct. Get your NAD 23 coordinates correct. Get your antenna height. Get your elevations. Get all that information. Get all that information ready to go to put it in that tech box when it comes time, and that way you'll be good to go. And try to have an alternate site in mind just in case.
Yeah, that's a good call.
How well can an engineer, I have green in my city, but how well can an engineer evaluate how hills and mountains will affect the signal? How close is the software for estimating that type of thing?
These tools only do like a very rough estimation of the area that you might cover. If you're talking to an engineer and want like an actual coverage analysis, they can do what's called the Longley-Rice study that will show you the signal strength of your essentially FM signal laid out on a map that takes terrain into account. So if there's a hill in the area, it'll show you that there might be a signal shadow behind that hill, something like that.
What's that survey called?
It's called a Longley-Rice analysis, and it's another fancy software package does that.
You can do with that tool. I don't know. There's a Canadian site or something.
There's a few tools that you can use that are online and free. One's called Radio Mobile. The other one is called Splat. That they have a very high learning curve in order to set up and use, but you can do that for free. It's actually, splat is one, it's like, you know, when you drop a tomato, splat. Or radio mobile. And you'll have to download terrain files so that it can take the terrain into account. You have to learn the idiosyncrasies of the program. They're actually really hard to use. You can do it. You can definitely learn how to use them. I have a hard time with these programs. But once you learn to use them, you can start to run these long race studies and see what your terrain coverage is actually going to look like. Radio Mobile runs in Windows, and I think Splat runs on Linux, but it might also work in Windows. No, doesn't work in Windows?
So I think yes, Radio Mobile Deluxe will work on.
Okay, yeah. Radio Mobile definitely works on Windows.
Fundraising, you think around $5,000
For the,
to do an LPFM?
well, just for the engineering studies and things like that, or all the equipment and things like that? Or budgets are very, they can be very expansive. I'd say if you have a green channel, like you're good to go and you don't need a whole bunch of engineering work, the application, maybe you pay a lawyer a couple $100 to look it over just to make sure you've got all your, you know, T's dotted and your I's crossed, things like that.
And there's no MX and there's no challenges.
Right, and you have a totally greased wheel, like everything goes well at the FCC. You don't have to hire a lawyer down the road to help you fight for your channel, you know, those sorts of things. That is pretty low cost. When you're building stuff, studio can be $500 to $5,000. At transmitter, it's kind of a non-negotiable $2,000, give or take, plus all the other stuff that comes with it. So anywhere from $5,000 to $15,000 for equipment and building costs and things like that. We haven't even talked about building a tower or renting a tower. So if you rent a tower, those costs vary. It can be a couple $100 a month. It could be a couple $1,000 a month, depending on the tower company and where it is and if you catch the right salesperson on the right day. Or if you're building a tower, it can be $5,000. It could be $20,000. It really depends on the height of the tower, where it is, the type of tower. You know, building a tower is not cheap, but it's a one-time cost.
And also, too, depending on your organization and depending on your community engagement that you're already involved in, you might get help. You know, especially if you work very closely with your city governments and such, you know, you might be able to get
water towers.
Water towers, exactly.
Water towers, the municipal communications tower, like,
Right, that's what I was thinking.
you know, if you strike a deal with the city, you might be able to get your tower site for free. There was one station I worked with that they put up a like 80-foot telephone pole at the municipal like water treatment site because they struck a deal with the city and to like play some emergency management stuff every once in a while. And they let them have the site for free, and all they had to do was hire the truck to put the pole up. And they struck a deal with the tower company and paid them like, I don't know, a couple $100 to just have a couple guys come out for the day and dig the hole and put the pole in. So it was actually not that expensive. It really work your local contacts on that stuff and do the networking, figure that stuff out. Again, it's a people problem. You know, if you hustle hard enough, you might be able to do it pretty cheap. So.
Just if we could talk tower design real briefly.
Sure.
A tower, is that really like anything you can attach an antenna to? Or is there like,
yeah.
I mean, when you say build a tower, is it like, here's this building I can attach an antenna to? Is that my tower then?
Sure.
Or it
Yeah.
doesn't have to have any special components in the tower itself?
No, when you say the word tower, I mean, imagine like a cell phone tower. You know,
Right.
there's that big self-supporting
Well, they attach
steel
cell
thing.
phones
You got all
to
sorts of
anything.
crazy stuff on
Yeah.
those. You could stick a pole on top of that and put an antenna there, or just attach your antenna to the side of that tower. Or you can, you know, build like a skinny, like triangular tower with the guy wires coming down off of it. Or you can just put a pole on the roof of a building, like a 15-foot pole with an antenna stuck on top. If you're walking around Urbana and you look up top of the building here, I don't know if they'll be able to give a tour of the roof, but there's a metal structure that's the tower itself, and then there's two like sort of triangular X-looking things coming off of the side. Those are the actual antenna. Those two metal things sticking off, those combined form the antenna for the FM station, and that's what you're putting on the tower. The tower is just the supporting structure, so it doesn't really matter what it is.
Right.
It could be a wooden telephone pole, it could be a roof, it could be, you know, a tree on a hilltop. If you know, that's possible. There's some stations that have done that, put them up in really big trees.
There are some rules, though, regarding your antenna placement, like if you put it on a building, where you have to have it separated by so many feet from people.
Right.
Because there are RF exposure.
13.5 feet or
something like that. Yeah, something
There's a
like
distance.
that. But there are rules regarding that.
So if it's on a roof and the top floor is occupied, you'll need like a 20-foot pole or 30-foot pole.
But we're talking flea-powered radio here, so you know it's not going to be anything superly major. You know,
You're not cooking anybody.
You're not. Yeah, you're definitely not cooking hot dogs here.
Yeah.
Say there's, you know, 94.5 is available
Right.
in my area. I'm real close to St. Louis.
Okay.
Say it's available where I'm at, and it's available 15 miles away. It's green both spots. Am I competing with that person?
No. If the signals don't overlap,
And
then there shouldn't be. So there needs to be a little buffer area in between there if they're on the same frequency.
If they're on the same frequency, 24 kilometers.
Yep.
If they're on a first adjacent channel, 14.
So that.
adjacent channels, what that means?
Sure. It's just clicks on the dial. So if you are looking at 94.3, the first adjacent is 94.1 and 94.5. So it's just one click up or down. Then second adjacent is one more click out. Third adjacent is one more click out. So there's different distances you have to be from other stations depending on how many clicks away from the dial you are. So if you're on the same frequency as another station that's 50 miles away, you might still have to protect that station and you might not be able to apply for it if they have a really big broadcast area. Because it's the same frequency, the FCC has really wide distances that you have to keep away from them in order to make sure you don't interfere with them. If you move one click away, you can be a little bit closer. 2 clicks away, a little bit closer. 3 clicks away, you can be almost right on top of them.
There is also there is a video that Julia and some Prometheus put together also to explain what second adjacent and third adjacent means also. So you can also go to the website and find this, or I can email again. But yeah, it's basically to don't cause like interference, and where we send a commands to the FCCs to have access to second adjacent. So that's a big difference. Like if we have access to second adjacent, that means there's going to be more channels that will be open, because we're not going to have to, you know, like we will have access to that present in a waiver or no.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I think we are over time now. So it's lunchtime. But you can find us, any of the engineering folks in this room.
I will say, yeah, there's engineers here.
Engineering corner.
Yeah.
You've been watching or listening to a presentation recorded at the Grassroots Radio Conference 2012 at the Indie Media Center in Urbana, Champaign. Thanks.